What's up guys, how's it going, and welcome back to the Skaz Talks channel. First of all, yes, the microphone looks stupid. Yes, my hair looks like shit at the minute. Yes, the camera's absolute trash. The lighting in here looks like I'm in a cave. Yes, my shirt's too small, but it's the greatest shirt in the universe, so back the fuck off. And yes, I am wearing pyjamas still. So now we've established the quality of the video is going to be absolute trash. Welcome to the video. So, wow, what a shit time to be alive at the minute. I mean, single parents who are self-employed, not knowing whether they're going to get their next meal, whether they're going to be able to support children. NHS staff having to work tirelessly throughout the day, throughout the night. Awful medical care for themselves and awful pay, as always. People having to call their elderly family every day, scared to all hell that they're going to get this disease and not be able to cope with it. And Tory voters, people who have said for the last 10 years that they do not want to pay tax to fund the NHS, are being forced out onto their front pavement to clap them every week. Thank you. I'll be honest, I don't know how they're coping. It must be so stressful for them. Speaking of Tories, thank God Boris is absolutely fine now. Says he was in intensive care for 48 hours where it could have gone both ways. Sounds like a sympathy vote for me, but we'll go with it. That must have been the most awkward experience of all time. Like, a man whose political views revolve around leaving the EU, making life incredibly difficult for European settlers in England. A man whose party's politics have strangled the NHS for 10 years, giving them shit working conditions and shit wages, and a man who's regularly made entitled comments over women in politics.
Prime Minister has made repeated offensive remarks against single mothers and their children, and he described them as ill-raised, ignorant, aggressive and illegitimate. Against Muslim women, saying they look like bank robbers. Against working women, suggesting the best way of dealing with advice from a female colleague is just to pat her on the bottom and send her on her way.
Imagine that all those oppressed groups were brought together and that is the person that's got to keep you alive. That must be so embarrassing.
If I mention in particular 2 nurses who stood by my bedside for 48 hours when things could have gone either way. They're Jenny from New Zealand and Luis from Portugal near Porto.
And no, you don't appreciate the work that the NHS staff do. You appreciate that they don't let you die because it's what you deserved, really, based on the treatment you've shown them.
It's a little bit harsh.
But anyway, I needed a Tory rant. It's what gets me up in the morning. So anyway, this video, I wanted to talk about mental illnesses and mental health in relation to this disease and this quarantine at the moment. I'm not saying that I have the answers. I'm not a qualified psychiatrist. I'm not qualified with regards to therapy and counselling and anything like that. I just thought sharing my experiences, because I suffer with depression. It's nice to know that you're not the only one going through it, because one of the worst experiences I feel is that you're just going through what everyone else is, but you're handling it really badly, and it makes me feel really shit. It's not nice that other people have got it, but it's nice to hear that the struggle you're experiencing is a legitimate struggle and it can be validated by other people's experiences as well. Today is one of my better days, which is why I'm able to put on this camera and do a video. But over the past few days, I've found it really difficult to even leave bed. And it's not been so much overthinking or anything. It's just been pure physical depression. Like, it feels like gravity is like 10 times harder. It feels like I've ran a marathon, I'm malnourished. But no, when you're rolling around in bed at 10, 11 a.m. and you can just about muster up the courage to like flick on your phone or your laptop or something and watch videos or anything just to pass the time by, and then before you know it, it's 4 o'clock and you're still in bed. Just getting out of bed to do anything is just, some days it's beyond doing. Do not beat yourself up about that, because there's some days where you cannot muster up the strength or the mental awareness to be able to just push yourself out of bed and start the day. And it has been amplified by this quarantine that we're having to go through. I'm not going to sit here and complain about circumstances because they are necessary. Obviously, it's important to keep people safe. I just understand with mental illnesses that when that routine that you have in your day-to-day life is taken away from you and you no longer have to do anything, like, you don't have to go to work, you don't have to go to the grocery stores and stuff because, well, you're not allowed to now. It just means that there's days where it's only your mental power and will to get up and create a schedule for yourself that you even do anything now. My depression in the past has been a lot of overthinking. It's been categorized by all the reading that I've done and some of the therapy that I've been through as the big questions, and it's sort of like looking at things from way too far out, like what's the purpose of being alive and stuff like that. And it's nasty shit that you don't want to think about. The way that I would be able to get over it and control it is that I recognize that it was just a feeling that I was having. It was just a thought process. It was completely out of my control. As soon as I recognized that those thoughts I could do nothing about, I just banished them from my head. I realized there's things that make me happy in life. Like, depression doesn't stop you being happy. It just allows certain traumatizing thoughts to come over into your mind and take up that space where it should be happy thoughts. So I focus on doing things that do make me happy now, so that those thoughts can just stay out of my head. And recently, with my depression getting bad again, it's not like those feelings have come back. Like I said, it's just a physical thing. It's like everything feels so heavy. I cannot push myself to do some of the things that I even want to do. I love lifting weights. I love dieting. I love doing something for my mom or my family, or something that makes them feel a bit better. I'm interested in doing things like helping with charity cases and stuff, or helping the NHS with deliveries or phone calls and stuff like that. It's stuff that I want to do when I sit down and think about it, but it's stuff that my depression is just making it really hard to motivate yourself to do. So rather than sit there and beat yourself up about it, there's things you can do to like nurture yourself, make yourself feel better. Do not beat yourself up about it, and ultimately help you get back on track. And there's things that I do. So firstly, it's about evaluating what position you're in on that day. You know your levels of mental health, and you know when it's at its absolute worst. My advice for when it's at its absolute worst is just survival, basically. Do not worry about not being able to do things you want to do. Just take that day, or maybe that 2 days, and just ride it out. Watch videos, watch a film, snacks to eat. You don't need to properly cook for yourself that day. You just need to make sure that you are there for the next day or the day after. That's what I do. When it's at its absolute worst, you don't want to talk to anyone, you don't want to do anything. It's like the lights are on but no one's home. So you're alive, but you're really not feeling able to do or want to do anything. No motivation at all. I understand that, and I realise that you're not just sad. That's really not how it works. Then there's the second phase. That's when you feel terrible, but you are thinking about the stuff that you want to do, but then there's an overwhelming feeling that is keeping you in bed. So with those days, rather than thinking of all the things that you want to do, focus on one necessity that you have to do. So rather than thinking about all the things you want to do but you can't, think about showering, washing properly that day, cooking yourself a proper meal. And I don't mean making a sandwich, grabbing a bag of chips, crisps, go to Canada for fucking 6 months, suddenly think I'm American, like crisps. But no, I mean actually cook yourself a meal, something. Make sure you're prepping a meal for yourself. So then at the end of the day, you have got that feeling of accomplishment. You've not just completely done nothing. So a day where you felt a little bit capable, you've gone out of your way, you've overcome that overwhelming feeling. You've done a life necessity, which is really good, and you should be really proud of yourself for doing that. Then we've got the next phase of your mental illness, and that's where you create a schedule for yourself for that day. You force yourself to wake up at 9 a.m, perhaps 10 a.m, whatever time you are comfortable with getting up at. You set an alarm and you get up at that time, even if you're feeling exhausted. And then throughout that day, you create a schedule of chores, or essential chores, by the way, not just dusting shit like that doesn't need to be done that day. Things that you know need to be done that day, that going without would be to the detriment of your life, if that makes sense. So like, it could be that the grocery shopping needed to be done 2 days ago. You're gonna do it today. You're gonna get up, you're gonna shower, very important. You're gonna create a meal, maybe 2 meals. So you're gonna cook 2 meals today as well. And so you're creating that schedule, not of things that you want to do, but of things that you have to do, so that you're getting yourself back into a routine again. And also, to prepare yourself for this phase of your mental illness, make sure you go to bed as well the night before. When you're feeling up to it and able to get to sleep at a good time, make sure you do, so that you have enough sleep to push forward for that third phase day. And then finally, the last phase of how you can fight your depression or your anxiety. I don't know if it applies as well to anxiety. It might do if you find this relatable, but I don't have anxiety personally, so I don't know if it would. But that is when you start to do the things that you want to do. So there's things like, for me at the moment, I'm creating a shelving display for my mum's plants. That's something I want to do because I know it makes her happy and I like design and craft and stuff, but it's not something like weights that is part of my routine that I feel bad if I don't do. So it's something that you want to do and you're pushing yourself out to do it, and that's as well as that routine you've set on the phase before. So you are making yourself time, you're doing things that you're comfortable with, but the most important rule with these phases is recognizing which one you are in, because you do not want to push yourself to do phase 3 and create yourself a whole schedule when you're in phase 1 and you can hardly get out of bed, because all you're going to do is you're not going to be able to do it, you're mentally not prepared to do that, and you're just going to kick yourself because you're going to be like, I should be doing this but I can't. I recognize that. I know that you can't do it that day, and that's okay, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be phase 1 all the time, because the wonderful thing about mental illness is that it's not always at the same level. The only person who's going to know which phase you're in at the moment is you. So those are my few tips for you suffering with depression, not just on how to survive whilst isolating, but how to live whilst isolating, you know. My most important comment to you is to look after yourself mentally, not physically, not making sure your nutrition is always peak. Yeah, that's important, but what is most important to you is caring for yourself mentally and not creating this conflict in your head of you should be doing things but you're not. You know you'll be wanting to do something, but whether or not you're mentally prepared for that, you also have to be honest with yourself. And if some days are really shit, you just have to accept that they're shit, and I know that sucks and no one wants to waste days of their life, but I found it the most effective way to get through these really dark patches of my depression. So anyway, good luck for the rest of your isolation and try not to have too much fun.